Hey,
Hey, buddy.
happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy October.
I think you shifted. It's October 1st.
It is.
You know, I caught an error on a Concordia post this morning. It said, come root the girls on Thursday, October 1st at Bennington. And I was like, wait, isn't today October 1st? It is. Today's also Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it threw me off. And I was a little, glossy-eyed this morning looking at that going, is it Thursday? Is today Thursday? Or is today not October 1st?
Yeah.
But it's all those things. And that was just an error. Mm-hmm. Errors happen. Per our previous conversation.
Yeah.
How you doing? You look so handsome today.
It's picture day at work.
Did your wife say anything to you? Was she like...
No, I tried to get her to groom me up, but she was like, I have to go to the store and shop. And I was like, all right. She had to go buy groceries. So I was like, what shirt should I wear? She was like,
How about a blue one?
how about a blue one? Yeah.
You do err towards the blues.
I do. I
Yeah.
still have a lot of
Why
blue.
is that?
I don't know.
What color are your eyes?
Hazel.
What's that, green?
Greenish brown, yeah.
Oh, greenish brown.
My eyes kind of rotate though.
What do you mean, like this?
No, I'll have days where my eyes are like almost all green, and then I'll have days where my eyes are almost all brown.
Oh, really?
And then I'll have like hazel.
Ooh,
Yeah.
mysterious.
Yeah. Someone told me that your eyes don't actually change color.
Right.
That's based on the shirt you're wearing or something like that, or your surroundings.
Yeah.
But like I can be standing in the mirror
Mm-hmm.
in the morning and my eyes are different colors.
So is it like the sky?
Is what
The
like
sky is whatever the sky is, but the sky reflects the color of everything else. So the sky doesn't really change colors necessarily. It just reflects. Is that like your eyes are
the sky
reflecting?
is blue.
Oh my gosh, I can't do this with you.
It's blue.
I'm not doing this.
It doesn't change color.
The sky is not blue.
It is blue.
The sky appears to be blue. Okay, well that's a whole other conversation.
So appears to be and is aren't the same.
It appears to be because when you look up, you see blue. But
So
the
it's
sky,
blue.
what are you calling the sky? I mean, space. Space isn't blue, right?
The sky is the upper atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
And it's
Which
blue.
is a reflection of...
It appears blue.
Gosh, I had another question for you, and we're so far off track. It's just completely gone.
Eyes change colors. That's my
I
belief.
dated a girl in high school, and she had two different color eyes.
Oh, I've seen somebody with that. They look like a wolf.
She did. She looked like a... what are those... grief.
You're getting old.
It's not... A Siberian Husky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she looked like a Siberian Husky.
Well, like my
she
daughter
was not
Peyton,
a dog.
her eyes change color.
Huh?
My daughter Peyton.
Well, no, but I mean, she had literally a green eye
oh
and a
yeah,
blue
I've
eye.
seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes, like when you look, typically you look at one person, you look at one
Yeah.
eyeball, and then I go, oh!
To her face.
She was a model. And I think part of that was... yeah, and I met her in Niagara Falls. Okay? No, wait.
Is this? You have dated some interesting people.
No, listen. What was that supposed to mean?
Well, you meet a multicolored eye model at Niagara Falls. You two-step with an Amish girl. You
Did two-step with an Amish girl.
or Mennonite. Sorry.
Mennonite girl. Gosh, we gotta
Yes.
get that right. Yes, Mennonite.
We should do a
Per
whole
the song.
episode of all of your dating adventures.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So you met her at Niagara Falls.
It'll go really well with this week's sermon.
What were you doing at Niagara Falls? Were you there?
No,
with
she
your
wasn't
family?
in Niagara Falls. That's a joke. She's from Omaha, Nebraska. She went to Millard North High School.
Okay.
She was a Mustang. But I think that part of the model thing was because it was so unique, you know. Eyeballs. I've had boring old brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's Logan. Logan has, like, his eyes are like, what would you call it? Light gray, I guess.
I had a friend that he had blue eyes,
Yeah.
but when he was cold, his eyes would turn gray. I'm dead serious.
I think your eyes are turning brown right now.
Probably.
You ever hear when people say that? You're so full of that your eyes are turning brown?
No, I'm dead serious. I have a friend. We would be like in the pool and he'd be like cold and shaking and his eyes were like gray like a wolf.
Did you say you'd be in the pool?
Yeah.
Huh. What were you wearing?
A swimsuit.
Up top?
I just, the things I go through to just record this podcast.
I was talking to the Flippins about, some of the recap of the 100 episodes thus far. And they're like, our boys still talk about, wearing an undershirt so that people couldn't see your nipples. I said, that wasn't me. That was Justin. That's what their kids remember. See, it's for the kids.
But isn't that so true? You can watch an entire Disney movie, and the one line
That's
kids
inappropriate.
will pick out is the inappropriate line.
That's true.
And I think Disney does it on purpose.
Well, yeah, but because you think you think about animators and people that are writing for kids, think of a room full of grown-ups sitting around a table writing a kid's movie. Yeah. And what that, how that plays out. I think it plays out immaturely.
Sure.
Yeah. Because, I suppose
what is your favorite kids movie?
My favorite kids movie?
Like what one when the kids were like, let's watch this, you were like, oh, I don't mind.
Like I'm in?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you didn't say my favorite Christmas movie. You said my favorite kids movie.
Yeah.
Children of the Corn. It's a kids movie. It's about kids.
It wouldn't surprise me that you let your kids watch that.
Which Children of the Corn?
Yeah.
Well, it's a Nebraska movie.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll have to think about that. I do like the Despicable Me.
Oh, those are funny. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, probably that one. I don't know. Like it's been a long time since we really sat around and watched a movie with the family. The last movie we watched is what's that?
You guys don't do that?
No.
What was the last one?
Where we all sat around and watched a movie?
Together, all of you.
I think the last time we sat around and watched anything, everybody in a room, it was probably COVID. That's been a while. And I feel like maybe it was Stranger Things.
That's not even a movie.
Well, it's kind of a movie. Well, how you can binge watch a few episodes. I know. Yeah, we don't really do that.
You should do it.
Well, but when? I think that's the bigger issue. And there's a span of kids. I mean, the kids at home right now are 15, 13, and 11. Like, do you think they want to just sit around and watch movies? They do not.
Your kids don't like to sit and watch movies?
Mm-mm. No. Ooh.
What do they want to do?
Well,
my kids love watching movies.
Okay, so what's your favorite kids movie?
I don't know. I'm not picky. I like watching. We just watched Inside Out again. I like that one a lot.
I've seen that one time. Just hit a little too close to home, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mostly with the guy with the fire on his head.
Anger.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all have one.
Apparently. Did you see the second one?
Yeah.
You did. You saw the number 2?
I think every parent of girls need to watch Inside Out too.
You need to watch the second one?
Oh, yeah.
Was that in the movie theater or was that just like a straight to...
No, it was in the theater.
Okay.
We saw it in the theater.
Oh, you did? See, that we haven't been in the theater in a long time.
See, yeah. I would highly recommend Inside Out 2 for every teenage girl and...
Okay. And
parents. Yes.
Okay.
You guys should watch that with girls.
Do you want to...
You will laugh and you will
elaborate?
Oh, it's just about like kind of coming of age and all the things that like a young girl, emotion wise, goes through and tries to find her place, and
Yeah.
then parents struggle of trying
Trying to keep up.
trying to deal with the extra emotions and feelings. And I mean, there were multiple times in that movie that like Joe and I would like laugh out loud, and the girls were looking at us like, "What?" We're like, "Oh, honey,
You're like,
that's
no,
you.
That's you.
That's you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you should.
I should watch
It's
Inside
out now.
Out too.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder
Yeah.
if my kids have seen it.
I don't know. Watch it with the girls. You'll like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it out? Like, can I
It's on
stream
Disney
it?
Plus, yeah.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
All right, I'll do that.
And make Cam watch it because he'll laugh too. He'll be like, "Oh, I see the girls doing that." See, now I've just helped you. You have a movie night.
Okay. Let's see. When's that going to be? Can't tonight, tomorrow night.
You guys literally don't have a night where all of you are together.
No, we do not.
You all sleep in this house.
Yeah.
So there's some point you're together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So watch a movie.
We'd have to split it up. We'd have to watch like maybe 15 minutes at a time. Then it loses its
You should pick a night and just
Entertainment.
cancel everything.
cancel everything.
Yes.
Okay. You want me to make this call?
No, not right now, but you should.
Like, you want me to say, hey, listen, that thing that you want to do, we're going to sit around and watch a movie.
Yes.
Okay.
Let
That
me
sounds
know how
like
it
a
goes.
great idea.
Yeah. Which leads into this week's sermon.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
We do pizza and movie nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on board with the pizza for sure.
Oh, I know you like some pizza.
And I like a good movie,
Yeah.
you know. You know, it is different though. I'll say this, like, especially at the ages they're at now.
Don't you need to rewatch Wonder?
Oh yeah, right. Just exactly what I need.
During our city, you were hiding in the back, sniffling, and you're like, "I can't watch this. I can't cry in front of everybody."
I can't. It's not that I can't. It's that like people would be, people start asking questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with him?
Yeah. No, what was funny was, we watched it for middle school. Another great movie, Wonder. And,
really
the kids were getting all sniffly and stuff like that. And I tried to watch it for the high school, our city. Oh, they revolted. They revolted. They were like,
we're not
no, we're
watching
not watching
that.
that. We're not watching that. And then, like, afterwards, the girls were like, I am not going to sit here and cry in front of all these people.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I thought you guys, like, hated the movie, like, by the way you were acting. But they were like, no, we're not going to cry in front of everybody.
That's how I feel too. You know, a lot of times I'll get asked, like, oh, hey, what's your favorite song?
Sure.
I get asked a couple things. What's your favorite song? And do you write music? Play something that you've written. And my favorite song is mood dependent,
Oh, agreed.
right?
My favorite movie, song, all that kind of stuff changes
All that stuff,
every
right?
day.
Yeah. And then also the songs I write are really sad. Mm-hmm. So play
All
something,
the songs I've written are sad.
except for Two Steppin' with a Mennonite Girl.
Yeah.
But that's because I didn't write that. AI wrote that.
Right.
Yeah.
I wrote a bunch of songs in college.
Go on.
I did.
Let's hear something.
Oh, I don't know. I don't even remember some of them.
Did
But
you really?
Yeah. When I was in Austin,
I was gonna say which round
Austin,
when you were in Austin.
I was taking music classes and learning how to play acoustic guitar.
Yes.
And I was taking singing lessons. Yeah. Because my buddy Jared was doing it.
Singing lessons.
I did.
Oh.
I had to sing in front of like a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And play guitar.
Okay.
And
Is there video evidence of this anywhere?
probably not. No.
I would really appreciate. I would like to see it.
Yeah. I sang a Garth Brooks song.
Which one?
What is it? She's Everything? Is that it?
I don't know.
I can't think of the
Sounds
title
good.
of it.
Yeah.
She's Every Woman. Maybe that's it. I got to look it up.
I'm Every Woman. That's That's Whitney Houston.
Every woman inside of me. Yeah.
Dude looks like a lady.
No.
That's
No,
a good
it's
song.
something like that. I'll have to think of it.
So, but give me an example of something that you wrote. I'm curious. You don't have to like sing it, but I'm just
Well,
like,
no,
what's the
because like
theme?
in Austin, like the music scene was very indie at that time. So like that's when like Dashboard Confessional was out and like all these, like kind of Jane's Mannequin and like and it was a huge eclectic scene, and so like I was listening to a lot of Elliott Smith and just like all those kind of morose songs and
Yes.
indie songs and so then I had to. Because like I had to take all these like kind of what do you call them, artsy classes? I don't know. So I did like the music, and then I did a poetry one. I actually loved it. Like I loved it because like every week we had to like come up with a new poem, in different styles and all this.
Yep.
And so like I would actually listen to the indie songs and like come up with poems. And so like they were all sad poems, but I actually really enjoyed it. And I not to, toot my own horn, but I wrote out some really good ones. I wish I had saved them. But yeah, I wrote, and then my roommate like kind of turned like a couple of them into songs and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was he talented in that way?
He played guitar and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
like he would like kind of strum out some things and be like, hey, that one fits with like this kind of a tune and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a process. I'm not. It's never been my forte, and I'm not sure exactly why that is, because how hard could it be, really? But there are some times where, like a line, or lines, or like a hook of a song, is like, oh wow, there's something there.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
agreed.
Like there's something that I put down that I was like but then it just gets parked.
Yeah.
Because like, well, then you got to write 3 or 4 more minutes around that, and
Right.
I don't know. It's not.
You don't have to if you're Hillsong. You just write one good line and then sing it 75 times. Which I appreciate. They're like, why put a bunch of good lines in one song?
That's right.
Spread them out.
Yeah. Let's just hammer this point home.
Yeah.
As long as the point is not heretical.
Well, don't let that get in the way.
I choose you.
Yeah.
My decision.
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, but I'll say this. There's something very therapeutic about songwriting. Very cathartic. And poetry.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I don't gravitate towards it. Maybe that's why I'm not very good at it.
Because you don't like therapy. You fight against it.
Just don't need it.
Yeah.
I'm super like level.
Right.
And not prone to highs or lows. But yeah, nobody really wants to, when I'm out and about playing, nobody really wants to be entertained with a really slow, sad, depressing song. They might think they want it, but they don't. So I'll just keep those. Just keep it.
We want to hear an original. Never mind.
I'm standing on the edge of a cliff.
It's like, I don't even know what it's from. But have you ever seen that clip of like it's someone dressed up like the Grinch and they're at yoga and they're doing yoga and all of a sudden the teacher's like, now let out all those inner voices in your head. And the Grinch just does this like high-pitched scream for like a minute. And everyone just stops. Oh, I wish I could find that scene. It's hysterical. I got to find that video. It's hysterical.
Somebody let somebody dressed up like the Grinch.
No, it's like
class.
obviously some show or skit or something like that. Just remind me at the end. I'll show it to you. It's hysterical. So, but hey, it was a good week.
Yes.
Got to talk about suffering. Romans
It's always
8:28.
It's always fun when we talk about suffering.
Yes.
Yes.
But Romans 8:28 does get talked about so much in times of trial and suffering. Yeah. God works all things for good. God works all things for good. And that's something that like, it's one of those verses that like, do we really understand what God's trying to say there? Because we have what we like him, we have what we would like that to mean. That, hey, no matter what, this is going to be okay. This is going to be fine. It's going to actually work out good. That at the end, I'll like, you're going to be like, man, that was awesome. Like you did something incredible. God, like, but that's not exactly what the verse means. And the verse talks about in all things. And then it talks about, that God works for good. And God's definition of good is different than our definition of good. And there's other parts of that verse. Like, it says, for those who love him. Like, do we realize that verse is only to Christians? Like, we say that, like to our friend who's, going through something like, oh, but God's going to work this for good. Well, no, if your friend's not a Christian, no, he's not. That's not what he says. And so, it's interesting, and called according to his purpose, like that we, when we are serving when we are following in the way that he wants us to, the things that happen to us all have a purpose and plan. But you got to back up on the other side of that. And I talked about this in the sermon, that there's 3 reasons why we suffer. 2 of them have nothing to do with God giving us something. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, anytime we suffer, we blame it on God. Number 1, God did this. Mm-hmm. God allowed this. God's making me go through this. 2 out of the 3, which the majority of what we face is, it's 100% sin. Mm-hmm. Ours or someone else's. And that brings the bigger question, and we didn't get into this in the sermon because like you can go round and round about this, but like, okay, but isn't God big enough to block that or stop that? Or, like even my own sin, can't he stop me from doing something catastrophic to myself? Can't he, like, and you can play that game and all that. And I guess, yeah, sure, that's true. But at the end of the day, God says we're all going to suffer, and there's 3 reasons why we suffer. 1 is because of our own sin, and that there are consequences because of it. And God allows those consequences out of love. He says, okay, you're going to suffer, but it's to teach you never to do this again. It's so that you learn your lesson. You don't, Second is that other people's sin impacts you. And that's not fair, and that's not fun. But that's why God punishes sin, because it doesn't just impact you; it impacts others. It hurts others. It causes others to suffer, and so that. And then the third kind is the kind that we have the hardest part about, and that's when God just picks us for suffering. And I guess technically you could say all suffering kind of falls in that category, because God could spare us if he wanted to. But what do we do when we're suffering? Well, we cling to verses like Romans 8:28, where it says, in all things, God works for the good for those who love him and are called according to his purposes. And so as I was trying to wrestle with that, because I was like, we really need to, because I feel like this was definitely not a beginner sermon this week. Yeah. This was like you gotta put on some big boy pants, and this is kind of a tough one. That God's actually choosing to allow you to suffer. Mm-hmm. And the thing is we all know that deep down, because when something bad happens, what do we say? Why is God allowing this? Mm-hmm. Why would God do this? We know deep down he is responsible for the suffering that we face. And that's hard for us to reconcile. And so that was why I wanted to tackle the 3 big questions of, is God in control? Mm-hmm. Because at times it feels like he's not. Like, this person has done this to me. This person's hurt me. This drunk driver hit them. Like what, doesn't seem like God's in control. It doesn't seem like he's working for good. Or at times, like, it doesn't even feel like he loves me. Mm-hmm. And so I think, it was hard to try and talk about the reality of suffering, but I feel like what I said in the sermon is true. If you can truly reconcile the answers to all 3 of those questions in your mind, it will change your life. Yeah. Because there are people that walk through horrific things, and they don't enjoy it. They don't say, "Oh, this will be great." Like I can't look, can't wait for more of this. But they do walk through it and hold on and get to experience a side of God um, that they learn that He's enough. So,
Yeah, well, give an example of that. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a personal example, but of a difficult circumstance that somebody finds themselves in, and then how that has been an opportunity for growth, for development, for spiritual maturity, for maybe a different perspective that's beneficial.
I have probably a half dozen times in my ministry been with someone who has been diagnosed with cancer. And they have said at some point or another during the process, this was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but what all of them experienced was they grew closer to God through it. They reprioritized their life. They made more time for family. They grew closer as a family. It brought family back together that was far away. Like that they saw, okay, God's going to allow me to suffer. I'm going to have this cancer. I'm going to have to go through the chemo. I'm going to have to go through, I think of one instance where it was a wife, and like her marriage was miserable. Like he was self-absorbed. His job was everything. He was never around. He never made her a priority. She was literally just like, she said, like, I felt like a maid in the house. Like I was just there to take care of the family. I was the nanny. Like there was no, there was no sweetness. There was no kindness, and even in their sexual relationship, their intimacy, it was just like, I'm just there to serve him. Like there's no intimacy. There's no sweetness. There's no flirtation. There's no
connection, appreciation.
It's just like, take care of this, and I'm gonna, And then she got breast cancer, and she was devastated, and I watched him change radically. And he started appreciating her, and he started loving her, and he started serving her, and he started taking care of her. And she just, I remember being alone with her at one point and talking, and, she couldn't even come to words of just like how blessed she was that her whole life was different after this.
Yeah.
Because she had a husband, and they grew closer, and they enjoyed each other, and they, and he just served, and he cut back at work, and he made the family a priority. The kids and him grew closer. And she was just like, this never would have happened without cancer.
Yeah.
And so did it suck? Yes. I had cancer, but like my life, God did incredible things through this, and he woke up everyone else around me. And if I had to suffer in order for that, okay. She was like, because if he had gotten the cancer, nothing would have changed. Like nothing would have, right? And so like in that instance, like she was like, okay, I'm going to survive. I think that's very different.
Sure, of course.
It
wasn't a death sentence.
Correct. Mm-hmm. But it changed their lives.
Yeah.
I think of, some of the biggest tragedies that I've experienced here at GraceHill even. God has worked in the periphery. Mm-hmm. I mean, you take something tragic like Seth's. I mean, we're almost coming up on a year here in December, mm-hmm. and we've had 3 baptisms because of it. we've had multiple families get back into church because of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at something like that, and by no means would the Firearms ever say, "Oh, that was worth it."
Right.
But I know that both of them would say, "But it wasn't meaningless."
It wasn't meaningless.
It wasn't meaningless.
Yeah.
There are 5 people that are living right now because of Seth,
Right.
because of his organ donation.
Yeah.
There are lives that have been saved through baptism. There are there are even youth who this changed the trajectory of their lives.
Yes.
That they were a part of GraceHill and stuff like that, but they have a seriousness and a maturity about them, and a staying away from bad decisions, realizing like, hey, like life is more important than these things, you know, like that tragedy, horrific tragedy, has changed the course of literally dozens and dozens and dozens of lives. And no, it wasn't worth it, but it wasn't meaningless. And that they can say those things is a testimony to God.
Big time. I also think that there are, for anybody listening to this or watching this and thinking about a difficult situation that's occurred in their own lives, tragedy or an illness or a loss, it might be saying, well, that's not the experience I had. You know, that's not what I found. And I think that a lot of times it's hard to go back through and examine something difficult in your own life, just to then see actually what God has done in it and through it and around it. But he does. And I think it's healthy for people to maybe go through that difficult process of putting themselves back in those shoes during that difficult time, and saying, and then really looking beyond that. It reminds me of somebody saying one time, I think this was around September 11th, where they said, don't look at the destruction and the tragedy of all that. Look to the people who are running to help.
Right.
Look for the first responders, the people who are helping save lives. Look to that and see the good in that. Don't look at the destruction and focus solely on that. Look at the people who are helping. I think it's somewhat like that. If somebody's gone through something and they're like, it was the worst thing ever, and nothing good came of that. It's a really...
Except looking at the nurses that were kind, and the people that brought meals over, and the church that surrounded you, or I think of like and I this is one of those times where I wish my sermon could have been 1 hour, but nobody wants to hear that. But like there's a whole part that I cut that I just couldn't figure out how to put it in. But Paul, who writes that Romans 8, he also writes 2 Corinthians. And in 2 Corinthians, I forget where it was, maybe chapter 6. He talks about going on a missionary journey to Asia Minor, and that they were beaten and left for dead. And he says something to the effect of like, I wish that we had died. Like, it was so awful. And I can't think of exactly how he words it. But literally he was like, we wished for death. We had been pushed beyond, like we were being beaten, and this idea of like, God won't give you more than you can handle, and everything's going to work out for your good. Like, it's just not true. God is 100 times over going to give you more than you can handle on purpose, because he's going to show you that you need to stop relying on you.
Yeah.
You can't handle it. But with God's strength, you'll endure.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between like this idea of like, oh, I'm going through this tragedy and I'm supposed to handle this. So that means, I put on a smile and I, everything's fine. And, like, that's not what God asks of you. Like, you take some of the most awful I mean, take the story of Job. Like, the story of Job is nuts. And it should make every Christian very scared. Because we read that and we take, I mean, it says that his body was covered in sores and boils. Like he was scraping them with clay pots. Like that's, I can't imagine. It says he was unrecognizable to his friends. Yeah. Then not only did he lose all of his kids, all of them instantly, he also lost all of his wealth. Yeah. And here he is sitting, and his own friends can't even recognize him because his body is so robbed of, health. Yeah. And pain and sorrow. And so is God going to push you beyond what you can handle? Yeah. Why? Because he's going to show you that your strength's not found in you. And that's what Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians. He said, God did all of this to show me that I need to rely on him. And that when I come to the end of myself, like that's when God can show me what he can do. Because there are people like, that have gone through tragedy and they're 10 years out and they just look back and you're like, oh, wow, how'd you walk through that? And they look at you and go, I don't know. And it's not like some big moment of like, oh, I found this and this helped and this. They're literally looking at you and going, I don't even know I am through it. Yeah. I don't even know how I have strength for today. Yeah. I don't even know. Sometimes I don't even feel like living for today. But I'm here. And okay. And to that person, like that is God giving them strength for today. Something he promises to do. Yeah. And so I don't think all of our struggles are like going to have this like happy Disney ending, of like, and then, because the story of Job, I didn't go into the end because that's not the point. That Job gets all his wealth back and gets more kids and double this. And like, that's not the point. The point is when you've lost, is God enough? And, I think of people going through trials in their marriages. A couple of days ago, or last week, I led the Tuesday morning Bible study. It was in Ephesians, and Paul's like thanking the church in Ephesus for their faith. As he's sitting there in prison, and he's going to be executed soon for his faith, and he's like, hey, I planted this church in Ephesus. I hear of your faith, like, and I'm just so thankful. And I just think of what that feels like to be in jail and just be like, okay, I'm not alone. Here's this church where they're working hard and they're trying and they're trying to spread the faith, so I'm not alone. And so I talked about appreciation, and I think that's huge. Like, do you recognize that God appreciates you? That God appreciates you? That like there's 100 things today that nobody is going to see, but God does, and He knows how hard it is. And there's some like Robin Williams quote, and I don't even know if it's really him or something like that, where he says something to the effect of like, you don't know the battles that everyone's walking through as you look at this life. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And I think that's so true that like we go through our trials, and like the person that's, the teenager that just got dumped, like that is like, as much as we adults look at that and go, oh, honey, you're fine. Like that's everything. That's everything in their whole world. Yeah. That's the most soul crushing rejection they have ever experienced. Right. And probably the first time they've ever experienced it. And it's gut wrenching to them, yeah. And it's suffering. And, I remember my first time, like in tears and anger and sadness and, like, and that's, like that's part of life. Yes. But we go through these things and there's no, in the arena of suffering, it's not a competition. Like yours is worse than mine is worse than that. And, like, we're going to suffer, and it's either going to be catastrophic things or death by 1,000 cuts. And in it all, the one lesson God's trying to teach all of us is he enough? That you go through this and you go, you know what? The things of this world, like, they're not going to satisfy me. They're not going to fix this. They're not going to make things better. They might distract me, but they're not gonna fix this.
Yeah.
And the only thing that truly fixes this is the hope to come.
Yeah.
You know, like right now in our reading through the Old Testament, we're in Isaiah, which is such an interesting book.
I love it.
Because you're just trying to figure out when he's talking about what.
Yeah.
You know, like he's like, there's going to be this destruction and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, okay, is that when everything's destroyed in 70 AD? Is that the final destruction? And then he's talking about all the good blessings of the Messiah. And then when the Messiah comes, and then you're like, wait a minute, I think that's the second coming. That's the first, you know, like, and you're trying to figure all this out. But throughout the book, you know, he's saying like, you're going to be punished for what you've done. And there's going to be destruction and there's going to be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But like the world to come, man, it's so much greater. And so like in the sermon, you know, those were the three big questions. Is like, do you recognize that God is actually in control? And even in our suffering, God is in control. Because I think somewhat if I knew, you know, like, okay, but God's watching. Like I'm going through this, but like there's a purpose and there's a time for that. And I'm not, it's not chaos. So it feels like chaos to me, you know, and I made the example of like Jesus on the cross. Like if you were standing there, you would be like, God, you're losing. And you're not in control, God, you know, and yet we know on this side of things, like he was. And in the same way, like we are in the midst of it and it feels like everything's swirling and everything's happening and we're in the midst of the storm. And yet God's going, and I'm with you in the storm. I'm with you. It's not chaos. Mm-hmm. I'm in control.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the first place of comfort is like when everything's spinning, like we just stop and the solid ground is, okay, this is happening and it sucks and it's awful, but it's not chaos and evil's not winning. God is in control. Mm-hmm. And then the second part is, and God is good. He is working this for your good. That either this is teaching you to detach from this world and that recognize like this world is not what it's about. It's about the next world. Mm-hmm. I'll suffer through this world. There will be things in this world and it's going to make me long for that world. Or it's teaching us an appreciation of Jesus because we get to join in the sufferings of Jesus and we go, man, and he did that for me. How incredible. And it teaches you to love Jesus more. Yeah. And so he's like, no matter what you're going through, it's going to be good for you one way or another. Either it's going to teach you about what's to come. It's going to prepare you for what's to come. It's going to teach you more about Jesus and get you more in love with Jesus. It's going to detach you from this world and all those things. And then the last one is like, does he love me? And that's overwhelmingly, yes, look to the cross. Mm-hmm. That was for you. That you're predestined. Meaning, like, God chose to love you and save you before you ever were created, knowing full well, in full view of everything that you would be, and every way that you would fail, and every way that you would be a disappointment and sin. And he still determined before you ever existed, I'm going to place my love upon you, mm-hmm. and I'm going to rescue and redeem you. That's how loved you are. And if you can cling to those three things, I think you can endure through whatever you are facing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what choice do you have? What choice do you have other than to have that hope,
right?
And that assurance?
The other side of it is dark, and that's
right.
And that's sadly, I mean, depression, suicide, all that comes in. People that lose that hope, mm-hmm. people that lose that perspective. I think of, some of the saddest ones are the widows, been married for 50 years and they just they're just like, take me home. I'm ready. I want to go now. I want to go now, and you're just like, okay, but you woke up today for a reason.
Right.
God's not done with you. And, he still has a purpose and plan for your life. There's still things you're here to do. He's going to work this for good. And he loves you. Like, it's going to be okay, you know? One way or another, it's going to be okay. And I just think if, I think, I don't know when I truly embrace those three answers, but I can tell you that I have. And when things come my way, it's changed my life, the way I approach those sufferings and those trials.
Yeah. Yeah, that, excuse me, that is a point that I want to drive home today. When you have a better understanding of who's authored everything and who's in control, who told us that we would go through suffering.
Right.
And also told us that he will work through that. And there will be good through it. It takes away a lot of the sting of that. It lessens the blow of that horrific, difficult, challenging situation, circumstance of your life. Because you know it's not a forever thing. You know it's likely not going to be as bad on the other side. And you have plenty of historical evidence of that. We all do. We can all go back in time, and we've mentioned this several times here on this podcast. We can look at a date on a calendar and go back 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, and know that we may have been in a very difficult situation in the past, and that was all consuming, much like a teenage breakup. And being on the other side of that and looking back and knowing how there was some good that came of those things is assurance to know that whatever you're going through now can be used for good. And that should take a lot of a bite away from that. It should lessen the blow. It should give you a different outlook and perspective, knowing that the God of all creation.
That's not the end of the story.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going through, you're in the middle of the story. It's just a bad chapter. It's a really horrific chapter.
Or a bad paragraph.
Right.
Or a bad page.
Right. And I think that perspective has helped me in my own life of going, this is bad. This is horrific. This is awful. But
the worst thing that has ever happened.
But this is not the end of the story.
Yeah.
This is a comma, but here's what's next.
Yeah.
And just kind of I think the other thing, and I don't expect that I think everybody reacts to these things differently. But I remember in some of the biggest tragedies we've gone through, of going like, oh, why should I be spared from something like this? Who am I that I shouldn't experience something like this? Like, I know tons of people who have gone through these things.
Or I deserve it. Because a lot of times it's our own doing. It's our own doing that puts us in that circumstance
some of those
anyway.
Circumstances, yeah.
And then it's like, well, that's it.
Right.
I put myself here. Everything that's happening, of course.
Right.
I did this. I deserve this.
Right.
But
no, I think when the consequences of my actions have come home to roost.
Yeah.
That was something that my dad instilled in me very young. I got in trouble all the time, but all the time. Yeah. But my dad always said, like, "Hey, in this house, we own up to what we have coming. Mm-hmm. If you're gonna play the game and you're gonna mess up, there's consequences, and we own them when there's consequences. Yeah. When you're busted, you own it." And I do think that's something that, you know, I have tried to instill in my own kids and that I've embraced in my own life of like, there are times where I get busted in something and go, well, what did I think was going to happen? Like, and in that way, when the consequence comes, I go, and this is right. Like, because clearly I wasn't afraid enough of the consequence to not do it. So maybe experiencing this consequence will teach me to not do this again.
Yeah, right.
And if not, God, make it a bigger consequence, because I don't want to do this again. I don't want to get embarrassed in this way or like caught, disappointing, people again or something like that. And so, yeah, like I think of, those types of things. Like for me, when I was younger, I was a pathological liar. I mean, I would lie straight to your face about anything.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Biggest, dumbest, boldest lies. And like, I'd get called out by friends. I'd get called out by teachers. I'd get called out by my parents. I'd get called out, like, and sometimes I couldn't even remember who I had lied to about what, and so I'd be telling them something and they'd be like, no, I was there. Like, and you're like, oh yeah, sorry.
Oops.
And I can't tell you how many times I was embarrassed. I lost friends. I lost, like I was punished. I was, like, and you would think like, oh, I've learned my lesson. No, like there are still times where like I can feel it coming up in me to be like, oh, I'll just say this. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like, who cares? They'll never find out if it's really yes or no, like that kind of stuff. And yet by the grace of God, I've learned like, no, that's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like, too many consequences have come to my life that have taught me like, that is not worth it.
Sure.
And it's only because the consequences were big enough that it finally broke me and I'm not saying I'm impervious to this anymore,
right?
But yeah, like it at times, like that's when like David said some of the most incredible things. Like, I delight in your law. I delight in your accountability, like, please teach my heart not to love these things, and so, but yeah, you look at your life and you look at those three realities: that God loves you, that he is for you, that he's going to do good for you, and that he's in control. It'll change your life. And I found a song, and unfortunately we didn't get to play it because I found it at 7:30 in the morning. As I had my Spotify on, it was a song I've never heard before, and the lyrics of it, I was going to say them in the sermon, but it just didn't work. But I thought it was beautiful, and it says, when my heart is torn asunder and my world just falls apart, Lord, you put me back together and lift me up to where you are. You have turned my mourning to dancing. You have covered me with grace. The struggle here may last a moment, but life with you will last always. When the age of death is over and the world has been reborn, I'll be beside my Savior. This grace is a rich reward. There is hope on the suffering, joy beyond the tears, peace in every tragedy, love that conquers fear. I have found redemption in the blood of Christ. My body might be dying, but I'll always be alive. That was a great, great song. And that's what it's all about. That this life is temporary. And God loves you so much that He cares more about your next life than this one. And He would allow you to suffer for your own good and for the good of those around you, to save others. And He loves you so much that He would allow you to suffer to teach you that He is enough. That's how much He loves you.
Name of the song?
Torn Asunder by Phil Wickham. I thought that was a great song. But I also thought Canvas and Clay was a great song. That was one that I asked for a while ago. And you picked the right week to throw it in there. That was a perfect song, too.
Good way to close it out.
And so I want to close it with this. Look, if you're suffering, if you're going through it, come and talk to me. Like I didn't get a chance to really talk about this in the sermon either. By no means are you supposed to walk alone in this.
Definitely
You're not strong enough to. You're not strong enough to. And so if you're suffering, if you're going through things, come and talk to us. That's why we're here. That's why we're a family. As we pick each other up, we hold each other together. We carry each other along. There are times that people are going to have to pick me up and carry me along. And there are times that I, as your pastor, pick you up and carry you along. But then on the last day, we stand together, arm in arm, family, united, gone through our trials and tribulations, but we leave nobody behind. Because there are going to be times where we're stuck in our misery, where we're stuck in our pain, and we can't leave each other there. And so if you're struggling, come and talk. Come and talk. And I'm not going to tell you, hey, toughen up and figure it out. No, like there are days to mourn, to just mourn.
Yeah.
And there are days to just cry. And there are days to sit in pity, and that's part of the process. And that's okay. But like the famous phrase, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay there. Like you gotta talk. You gotta get help. You gotta work in that pain and that mess. And that's what we're here for. And we love you. And we're praying for you. And we're in it together.
Like a family should be.
Yep.
Yeah.
So God bless you guys.
Amen to that.